We're going to be looking at this question. We're asked, given the integer array A, we're going to write a not C++. We're writing the similar equivalent, which would be Java, but C++ would be very similar to this. And the function that we're going to be writing is void function swap. We're going to exchange two valid elements of our array. The elements are indexed by unsigned indices I and j. So our method is going to start off like this: swap ija. We have this public class where we're swapping our array values in here that I already made. We're going to need a main method to test this. So we're going to have a public static void main where we are passing in string args, and then we're going to be inside of here. So this is the main method. Now, I want to make a main method where we have our array first. So let's initialize and create an array. We'll have int, and we'll just call this array1, and we're going to set it equal to some values in here. We'll just do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We can end this line, and then we want to print these all out. So we're going to do a for loop. We'll just do a super basic for loop. We'll nothing fancy here. We'll do for int a is equal to 0, and we're going to run this as long as a is less than array1 dot length. So we get the length of the array and we run it the entire time, and then we're just going to increment a, so eventually we get to the end. And I just realized there should not be a decimal there. So inside of here, we're going to do a sysout statement, and in our sysout, I should do a control space, and then it'll fill it out automatically. We'll do a array, we'll do array1, and then inside of here we're going to pass in the specific index that we are incrementing and looking at. So every time we run through this, we are going to print this array out. So we can pull up the console. I'm going to run this really quickly, and we print out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when this is done, I'm just going to add a separating line in here so that we can see if our output has changed or not. Now we need to call our method, this swap function right here. So I'm just going to copy this header just to make sure we get it right. And we're going to come down here. It's going to be in the same class. We're going to make it a public, or actually, it doesn't matter what we make it. We can make it public or private. I'll just make it a private here. And we're going to call it static because we're not making an instance of it. We're just going to be straight up accessing it. And it's not returning anything, so it's going to be a void. And then we can just put these braces in here like this. So inside of here, I don't know why it's giving me a specific, it's giving me an error because these are not, they don't include the actual variable. When you pass in parameters like this, you have to include the variable of it. So we're going to have int I, we have int j, and we need int, but it's an array, so we have to include these two, and it's going to have a here. I also need to make sure I spell private correctly. So this is our method, and we need to call it up here. We're going to do swap. We are going to pass in the indexes we want to swap. So let's swap our 1 and 2. These are our indexes 0 and 1, so we're going to pass in 0. We're going to pass in 1, and we also need to pass in our array 1. And I'll just call this array in here. Well, it wants us to call it a, so I should probably change this to a just to follow the instructions. So I'm going to change this to x, change this to array.length, or a.length, change this to x, and then we're going to change this to a, this will be x, this will be x, and then this will be a. So now, according to the instructions, it is correct. Once we swap these, we're going to want to print it out again, so we can just copy this for loop. We could also put all of this inside of a huge for loop that runs twice, but we'll just do it right here. We're just trying to get the whole point across of how we can swap values in here. So when we swap values, we are going to have to create a temporary value to hold the first value. This is the main part of our swap. So we're going to make a int temp value. We know we want to swap the two elements that are at these indexes because we're passing in the indexes here, not the actual elements. So we have int temp is equal to, we are going to say a, and then we're going to get the index at I. So now temp stores whatever element is at index I, and now we need to reassign I to be j because we need to swap it. So the element at I is now going to be equal to the element at j. And then after we swap this, we can say that aj is going to be equal to our temp value. And the reason why we can't do aj is equal to ai is because ai now holds element aj's value. So now if we try running this, we can see that we have a proper swap. Our 1 and 2 has swapped, and the rest is the same. We can even try it with different values. So let's swap out, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 indexes in here. So we're going to swap out 3 and index 4. So let's run this again. And so we can see our 5 and 4 are swapped out. So that is super basic code on how we would write a function for our swap. If we wanted to make this even better, we could probably use like a for each loop, and then we could put both of these inside one main for loop and just have it run like that and call this when the inner for loop is done when it does its second iteration. But that's the super basic way to code this.